Oh, Lord. Voice. Voice.
So you need to think twice. God didn't put anything wrong. This is funny recording.
Greetings, guys. It's your girl, the Marquella Carnesia Jones, coming to you with another video. Let's get into it. So today we will be talking about temptation, sin, and death. So I'm going to be reading from James chapter 1, verses 12 through 15. And we're going to do a verse by verse analysis. Ooh. Starting with chapter 1, verses 12. Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. When I think about this verse, I think about when Jesus first came on the scene. Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11, it talks about how when Jesus first came on the scene, he was baptized, and then he was led into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And he was tempted 3 times, not 1, not 2, but 3 times he was tempted by the devil. And he endures it. He don't give in to the devil at all. Imagine if Jesus would have gave in to the devil. We'll probably still be
Slinging chicken, ram, birds, people.
for our sins to be forgiven. Thank God for Jesus, y'all, for obeying and listening and not give in to that temptation. That's the same thing with us, y'all. We have to remember that when temptation comes up, we cannot give in to it. And we're going to read through the cycles of what happens when we go into from temptation to death. Verse 13 says, "Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone." When a situation comes up that is totally against God,
That ain't God, y'all. That's not him.
God does not tempt you.
What is temptation?
Temptation is the desire to do something wrong or unwise. God is perfect. He can't do no wrong, nor will he do anything unwise, nor will he lead you to do anything wrong or be in an unwise situation. There's a whole book, a few books of wisdom. Why would he lead you into doing something that's crazy and just heinous and unwise? That's not him. Think about a situation where you feel like you're compromising from doing something good to doing something bad. For instance, you need to let somebody go because they're not Christ aligned. They didn't come from God, y'all. If their characteristics are not lining up as a kingdom person, more than likely God didn't send that to you. Just because God allows something crazy to happen in your life doesn't mean he sent that crazy. Most of the time we bring crazy on ourselves when we continue to deal with it. And God is just telling you to get out of it. And he's trying to help you through. He allows you to go through that because at the end, he gonna get the glory for it because he know you gonna make it out of it if you listen to him. If it's a temptation, it didn't come from God. If it's making you compromise your standards, it didn't come from God. If this guy is making you compromise having sex with him, it didn't come from God. I don't care how kingdom a man say he is. If he tempting you to want to sleep with him, that didn't come from the Lord.
I'm patting myself on the back for that one.
Sometimes we think that, oh, God sent him, but you know, he be trying me a few times. He might be slick a little bit. Nah, sweet. That ain't come from God. You need to cut that one off. Cause it didn't come from him.
Right.
Verse 14. This is my verse right here. "But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed." So the first word I want to look at is drawn away. Immediately I think about your thoughts. You get drawn into your thoughts. Looking at own desire, everyone has a desire, whether it's good or bad. So temptation happens when you have your own desire, which comes from within. That's the inner source. The outer source, which is the enticed part. The enticement comes from somewhere else, from something, from someone. It is an outward source that's going to mix in with your own desire. Say, I may desire to want to have sex. But I know that I don't need to act on it. I position myself around people that's not going to entice that desire out of me. And if I be around people that's not going to entice the sexual desire around me, I won't act on the act. Versus if I'm desiring sex and I'm single, not married, and I get around people that want to have sex with me, then I am going to want to have sex with them. The people you're around, the things that you're entertaining and listening to, that's going to take you to temptation. Remember that you have control over your desires, and you also have control over the enticements. Put guards on your eyes and your ears and your mouth. Like whatever you're watching, put a guard on what you're watching. Put a guard on what you're hearing, the people around you, the music you're listening to. A guard on your mouth. You got to learn how to tame your mouth. You can't be saying and talking about everything. Like, you can't do that when you come into Christ. The reason why we say certain things is because what's in our heart. What comes into our heart is what we see, what we hear. When it comes into our heart, it comes out of our mouth. So you have to be a gatekeeper of your eyes and your ears, because now that enticement is going to lead you into whatever temptation it is that you're trying to stay away from.
What are you listening to? What are you watching? Who are you around that's enticing you to do things outside of the will of God?
You got to check that and get rid of it.
I'm patting myself on the back for that one.
Verse 15. Then, when desires have conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. The first thing that stood out to me was then, comma, when desires have conceived, comma. Think about that part, is when it happens. We can change that narrative. It don't have to happen. We don't have to act on our temptations. We don't have to act on every desire we have. And we don't have to act on our bad desires, guys. We have control over that based off of what we're allowing to entice us. Then I think about it gives birth to sin. With sin, it could go either way. So when you sin, you can either be stuck in that sin, or you can say, you know what, I sinned, I messed up, I'm going to ask God for forgiveness, and I'm going to let everything go. When you say that you're going to let everything go, you have to be willing to cut those people off. Whoever you sin with, you got to let them go. If it's meant for them to come back, the Lord will let them come back. You got to be willing to cut that off and say, hey, like, you're enticing me. I got to get rid of you. You got to go. No. If you're not willing to let them go, you're going to continue to sin. And then you're going to end up over here where you're sinning and you continue to sin, and then you become spiritually dead. Back to your enticements. What are the things you're listening to and you looking at that's feeding that desire? What are you feeding that desire that's growing inside of you? For instance, like I was saying, sex was a thing that I was desiring as a single person. Well, I would be feeding that if I was listening to sexual music all the time, watching porn, watching TV with a lot of sex scenes in it, be around people that talk about sex all the time in the wrong context. Like, I would be feeding that, and I have to watch what I'm feeding that desire. You want to make sure that you're getting around people that's not going to feed that desire. That's not going to make you fantasize or think about, sexual things while you talk to them. If I have a good desire, a desire to want to work out, then I can feed that desire by watching workout videos or actually getting out and getting active. Eating right will help me want to work out more. After you have fed that desire for so long on the inside, it eventually will come out of you. You will give birth to that and you will act on it. When you act on this thing and it starts to grow more, now you're dealing with spiritual death. I remember when I first read this, I was like, death? What? And God had spoke to me of spiritual death. That's one of the worst deaths to be in. To still be alive, but you're spiritually dead. You feel hopeless, purposeless. You don't feel connected like you used to with the Lord. And you have to be able to say, dang, you're going to get to a point to say, man, I used to have a strong relationship with the Lord, but what happened? You have to backtrack in your mind and go back and say, it all started with temptation. It all started with me desiring something. and then being enticed, because the desire is going to be there. But then what are you feeding it? Are you trying to stay away from that bad desire? If it's a good desire, are you feeding it? That spiritual death is a disconnection from you and God, and you don't want to experience that.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to give a little bit of my personal story. I had came to Christ. It's been plenty of times where I have came close to God and then strayed away. This particular time, I had just got off of a fast and I was celibate for a few months. I was starting to go more places because I was in the house so much. I had just moved to this new city and I didn't go anywhere. So I told myself I was going to start going places. And mind you, I'm saved, I didn't have any saved friends. So I didn't know what to do. So I started going to this place where you can eat and have fun and drink or whatever. So I would go there and in hopes at some point that I would kind of lead people to Christ.
Wrong.
I remember sitting at the bar and I met this guy. We ended up exchanging numbers, and then we was so unequally yoked. He kind of believed in something different than what I believed in. Like, he said he was a Christian, but when people say they Christians, you got to watch their fruit.
They can just be talking out of the side of their neck.
I was celibate, he would try to say little slick things here and there, and I would just kind of brush it off like, no, get down like that. Eventually, it came to a point where I had that deep down desire, like, to have sex, but it wasn't awoken until he started talking to me about sex. He would say these slick comments, or he would, try to get me to visualize certain things. I gave in and I had sex with him. At this point, I just forget it. Like, I'm not going to do right. Like, I done messed up.
Might as well keep doing me.
And so I had this attitude of where it is what it is. And I started fooling around again and was stuck in sexual sin all over again. It got to the point where I was spiritually dead. I was really close with God. After acting on that desire, it was just like, here I am stuck in sin again, and now I feel a disconnection from God because I'm doing something that's out of his will.
But I want to do what Nene want to do. Like, I want to do what I want to do.
That situation took me through a lot of pain, and it was necessary because it strengthened me and made me the woman that I am today. I don't think I would be this close to God now if I wouldn't have went through that situation. With this story, I want you all to understand that temptation starts with whatever you're desiring deep down inside, and then whoever or whatever is enticing that. Watch what entices you. He's always going to lead a way out for you. And then if you so happen to give into it, you get into sin, but it's not too late. So say if you was to sin, God will forgive you. Come back to his side. But if you keep giving into sin and keep doing those things that are not like Christ, you're going to be going down a long road, and then you're going to lead to spiritual death. We could just start right here, right now.
Watch what you're listening to. Watch what you're watching. Guard your eyes. Guard your ears. Guard your mouth.
If you don't have kingdom people around you, find some kingdom people. If you can't find no kingdom people, go on YouTube. Watch something on TV that's positive. Do not be around these people that is going to entice you to want to fight, smoke weed, get drunk, have sex, or do anything that's just out of the will of God, stealing.
Lying on your taxes.
Whatever you're doing that's out of the will of God. So I hope this video has encouraged at least one on today. I am praying for you that you will not be tempted by the devil. He is crafty, but he come with the same old schemes.
Every time.
It's slicker. You got to understand and you got to know his game, because he's going to come at you every time. With that being said, let's get this word out here. Share this word, guys, until all have heard. Deuces.